The military base buzzed with excitement as soldiers reunited with their families. Flags waved, children squealed, and arms locked in tight embraces. But Sergeant James Carter stood quietly, his green duffel bag slung over his shoulder, scanning the crowd, not for family, but for her. He clutched a tiny velvet box in his pocket. The engagement ring inside had survived IED blasts, endless sandstorms, and months of lonely desert nights. She had promised, no matter what, I'll wait for you. But there was no Emily in the crowd. He dialed her number. Voicemail. Again. Nothing. He smiled faintly and muttered, probably planning a surprise. But deep down, something felt wrong. 3 days passed. James finally arrived in his hometown of Asheville, North Carolina. As he walked down the familiar streets, his military boots echoing on the concrete, memories flooded back, prom nights, senior year laughter, their first kiss under the oak tree. But when he reached her house, it was empty. A "for sale" sign stood crookedly on the lawn. Confused, he wandered until nightfall. He passed by St. Luke's Church, a place once full of prayers and hope. There were white ribbons tied on the gate. The sound of a wedding band echoed through the night. He peeked through the side door. And there she was, Emily, dressed in a flowing white gown, laughing as she danced. But not with him. With Mark Sullivan. His best friend. The man he had shared foxholes with. The man he'd trusted with his life. His knees buckled. He turned around before anyone saw, his world spinning in silent agony. That night, James didn't sleep. He sat under the same oak tree where they once carved their initials, and cried until sunrise. He couldn't believe it. Mark had been with him on every mission, every near-death experience. They had saved each other's lives more times than they could count. And now, he had stolen his world. The next day, unable to hold the storm inside him, James visited Mark's father's auto shop, where Mark sometimes worked. Mark was there, wearing a wedding ring. James stood silently for a moment, then said coldly, "You didn't even have the decency to tell me." Mark looked shocked. "James, You were supposed to look after her, not fall in love with her. She thought you were dead." Mark snapped, ashamed. "Your convoy was ambushed. You stopped writing. We thought I was alive," James whispered, his voice breaking. "And I came back to nothing." He left without another word. Sometimes betrayal doesn't scream, it whispers in silence that never leaves you. James retreated to his late father's cabin on the edge of Blackwood Forest. It was where he used to go fishing as a child. But now, it felt like a place for ghosts. Days turned into weeks. He stopped shaving. He ignored calls from the army therapist. He barely ate. One day, he stared at his own reflection and saw a stranger. He whispered, "Who am I without her?" He scribbled in a notebook, thoughts, nightmares, fragments of memories. "Sometimes I wish I hadn't survived. Maybe the bullet that missed me in Kandahar was a mistake." It was raining heavily the night Anna knocked on his door. James ignored it at first. But then, another knock. He opened it slowly. A young woman stood shivering, holding the hand of a little boy. "Are you Sergeant James Carter?" she asked gently. "I was," he said hoarsely. "I'm Anna. And this is Eli." His father was Marcus Hayes. James froze. "Marcus was my squad mate. He died in my arms." Anna nodded. "He told me about you in his letters. How you saved lives. How you were the only family he had." James dropped to his knees, staring at Eli. The boy whispered, "Are you my daddy's friend?" James hugged him tightly, fighting back tears. "I was his brother." Anna stayed for a few days. She explained how she and Marcus had fallen in love but never married. When Marcus died, she was too broken to seek help from anyone in the military. James taught Eli how to fish, just like his father had dreamed. They laughed, played cards, watched cartoons. Eli often ran to him, shouting, "Uncle James! Look what I drew!" Every hug healed James a little more. Every smile brought color back into his grayscale world. Anna, too, began to open up. She told James how she had nearly given up. How she was living paycheck to paycheck. How Eli never got to know his father. James said, "Then let me tell him." And he did, night after night. He told Eli about his brave, funny, kind father. And in doing so, James rediscovered his own strength. One day, a letter came in the mail. From Emily. James. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know, I never stopped loving you. I was told you were gone. Mark was there. I was weak. I cried every night. But I see you on the news now, how you've turned your pain into purpose. You're raising Marcus's son like he's your own. You're the man I knew you always were. If you ever want closure, I'm here. If not, I'll always be proud of the man I once loved. James held the letter for a long time, then folded it and placed it beside his medals. I forgive you, he whispered to the wind. But I've already moved on. A year later, James and Anna stood under the oak tree, holding hands. Eli ran in circles, laughing with joy. James knelt down and pulled out the same velvet box he once carried through war zones. This ring survived war, heartbreak, and betrayal. I thought it had lost its purpose. But it was just waiting, for the right woman. Anna's eyes filled with tears. Yes, she said before he could ask. And Eli shouted, we're a real family now. James now runs a non-profit for war widows and veterans. Anna teaches at the local school. Eli proudly tells everyone at school, my dad's a hero. James visits Marcus's grave once a year and leaves a note. I kept my promise, brother. He's safe. And I found my reason to live again. Sometimes, the world takes everything from you. But in the ashes of what's lost, life plants seeds of something new. Stronger. Truer. And unbreakably beautiful.